All right, today we're cracking the corporate code. You know, all those unwritten rules and that secret language that seems to drive the business world. Ever feel like that? Like you're on the outside of some inside joke? If you do, you're definitely not alone. It doesn't matter if you're just starting out or you've been around the block a few times. It can totally feel like everyone else got a manual that you somehow missed. Well, think of this as your official cheat sheet. We're going to break down the key words and phrases you need to know from that very first interview all the way to the boardroom. The goal here? To give you the vocabulary to handle any career stage with total confidence. So let's dive in right at the start. Okay, first up, landing that first job. Getting your foot in the door. The whole journey really kicks off with your application, and right from the get-go, understanding the subtle language employers use, well, that's your first big test. So first things first, let's get the basics straight. You'll see words like full-time or part-time. That's pretty simple. It's just about your hours. But then you've got permanent or temporary, and that's all about the job security. Knowing what these mean from the jump is huge because it tells you exactly what kind of commitment you're looking at. Now, listen, job descriptions are basically filled with code words for what a company really wants. Seriously, think of this list as the answers to the test. When you see self-starter, what they're saying is, tell me about a project you took charge of. When they say team player, they mean, give me an example of a group win. These aren't just fluff. They're literal instructions on how to frame your experience. Boom! You got the offer. Awesome. But wait, before you get fixated on that one salary number, you gotta look at the whole compensation package. This is the total value we're talking about. It's not just your base pay. It's the bonuses, the commission, and all those fringe benefits, like a company car or health insurance. You have to look at the whole shebang, because that's the real bottom line. All right, so you're in, you've landed the job. Now the challenge changes, right? It's not about getting hired anymore. It's about actually thriving. And that means getting a handle on the daily grind, the company culture, the endless meetings, and how the place is even structured. Oh man, we've all been in this meeting, haven't we? The one that just goes nowhere. Someone's rambling on and on, people keep going off on tangents, and you walk out thinking that absolutely could have been an email. But here's the thing, it's not just annoying. It's actually a major red flag for a weak communication culture. Yeah, this picture probably hits a little too close to home, but the key to fixing this chaos is the person who's supposed to be leading it. A good chairperson is the antidote to this mess. Their job isn't to talk the most, it's to be the organizer, the timekeeper, the one who steers the ship away from disaster and towards an actual productive outcome. And the way a company runs its meetings, it often tells you a lot about its overall structure. Just look at this example. You see it going from this tall, kind of clunky hierarchy to a much flatter one. That whole process is called delayering, and the entire point is to slash bureaucracy and make communication faster. It's a really big deal in the modern workplace. So if the whole company structure is getting flatter and changing, how do you make sure your voice doesn't get lost in the shuffle? Well, becoming effective isn't just about what you say. It's all about how you say it. So how do you actually run a meeting and dodge that chaos we were just looking at? It really comes down to this simple playbook. First, a great chairperson makes a clear agenda beforehand. Second, they're a strict timekeeper during the meeting. And third, and this is crucial, they make sure it finishes on time. It sounds so basic, right? But mastering this flow is an absolute game changer. Okay, but what if you're not the one in charge and you need to disagree with something? You don't have to go in guns blazing. There's a subtle art to it called hedging, and it lets you challenge an idea without starting a fight. Using a phrase like, I take your point, but, is perfect. It shows you're listening, but it also gently opens the door for your own perspective. It keeps things from getting heated. But sometimes you do need to be firm. There are moments when you just have to draw a line in the sand. And for that, a phrase like, I'm sorry, but that's out of the question, is your tool. It's direct, it's clear, and it leaves zero room for misinterpretation. The real skill is knowing when to use the soft touch and when to be direct. At the end of the day, all this talking has to lead somewhere, right? And that's where compromise comes in. It's that classic situation where everybody gives a little so the whole team can get something done. The goal isn't always for you to win a perfect victory. The real goal is to reach a consensus, a general agreement that everyone can get behind and, most importantly, move forward with. All right, let's shift gears and talk about the one language that powers everything in the business world: money. If you really want to understand the bigger picture of how your company operates, you have got to speak this language. Pretty much every single business plan starts right here with something called the sales forecast. It's basically the company's crystal ball, its best guess at what it's going to sell. And this one number, it dictates everything else. I mean, everything, from how much money each department gets to that all-important sales target that everyone's performance is measured against. Of course, a plan is just a plan. Reality can be different. Take a look at this example. You can see their planned budget right next to what they actually spent. And yep, they went over budget. This constant tug-of-war between the plan and the reality of spending is a never-ending battle for pretty much every business out there. Here's another inside tip. Not every product a company sells is supposed to make a ton of money. Some are your classic profit makers, that's their only job. Others are designed to just break even. And then you have these weird ones called loss leaders, products they actually lose money on just to get you in the door to buy other stuff. It just goes to show you that profitability can be a really complex game. Okay, for our final section, let's zoom all the way out and talk about the language of leadership. This is the big picture stuff, the concepts that don't just run the business day to day, but actually shape its entire future. Here's a quick one. What you call the top boss can change depending on where you are in the world. In the UK, you'll probably hear managing director, but in the US, it's almost always chief executive officer or CEO. It's the same job, just a different name. A small thing, but a good example of those little cultural differences. And it's not just the titles that are changing, it's the entire style of leadership. The old school way was very top-down or authoritarian. Basically, decisions came from the top, and you just did them. But the big trend now is managing by consensus. It's all about discussion and teamwork, with leaders who are much more approachable. And this is the language of the big leagues, the words you hear when companies make massive, industry-shaking moves. So a merger, that's like a marriage between two equal companies. A takeover is when one company buys another one. If the company being bought is cool with it, that's a friendly bid. If they fight it tooth and nail, then you've got a hostile bid. These are pretty much the ultimate power plays in business. So we've kind of seen that this whole secret language from day one in an interview all the way up to the boardroom, it really can be learned, it can be mastered, which brings us to one last big question. When it comes to the greatest leaders, are they made through learning all this stuff, through skill and practice? Or are some people just born with it? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining me.